Welcome back to the Britannia Coin Company. We're a coin dealer based in Royal Wootton Bassett in the UK. This year we celebrated the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, the first monarch to reach such an amazing milestone, and it got me thinking recently about the other queens of Britain. So I thought we'd take a few of their coins and have a look at them. We start with a silver penny from 1135 to 1154, making it over 860 years old, minted for King Stephen. I know the first coin of the Queens of Britain video is a king, but all will be explained. Before King Stephen there was King Henry I. At the time of his death, his hold on the throne was absolute, having subdued other claimants by force or by marriage. He had two legitimate children, William and older sister Matilda. William died before his father, leaving Matilda as his only legitimate heir. King Henry made his family and nobility swear fealty to Matilda as the heir to the English throne. When King Henry I died, instead of honouring his promise, her cousin Stephen rushed to London and through speed and bribery seized the throne and the treasury, becoming King Stephen I. And this is how we end up with this coin. Dismayed at this betrayal, Matilda sought assistance from her half-brother, Robert of Gloucester, and her uncle, King David of Scotland. She invaded, and so began a period of civil war referred to as the Anarchy. In 1141, both sides met at Lincoln. With Stephen defeated and captured, Matilda was now ruler of the entire country, but Stephen's forces still controlled significant areas of the territory. Despite this, she made plans for her coronation at Winchester, and this is where the mess gets a little bit messier, because it's unclear if she was actually crowned, and the City of London rose against her. She also had to trade Stephen as a prisoner for her half-brother Robert, who had been captured by Stephen's forces, and the war continued in full force. Eventually, Matilda returned to Normandy, giving up her struggle. Empress Matilda is a contested queen, but is notable for being a strong warrior ruler. There were some coins minted by her during the Civil War, initially in Oxford and then in Bristol, Cardiff and Wareham, after her victory in Lincoln, but she had a shortage of funds most of the time, resulting in there not being many created. Things stay a little bit complicated with our next queen. This is a modern token with the portrait of Lady Jane Grey pictured. She is the shortest reigning British or English monarch ever. We need to roll back a bit to King Henry VIII, who had decided that there should be a formal line of succession, appointing his son his heir. He even left instructions as to the succession of his son should he die with no heirs. After his son, his daughter Mary would inherit the throne, and if she had no heir, it would pass to his other daughter Elizabeth. And if providing Elizabeth had no heir, it would then pass to his deceased younger sister's descendants, the Greys. King Henry VIII's son became King Edward VI, aged just 9, following his father's death. He ruled for just 6 years, but managed to upset his father's plans, appointing Lady Jane Grey, his first cousin once removed, as his successor. When he died, she was proclaimed queen, but Mary was having none of that. Mary gained support quickly, and Jane's supporters abandoned her, and the Privy Council proclaimed Mary queen 9 days later, deposing Lady Jane Grey before a coronation could take place. She would be tried for treason, although initially spared execution by Mary until it was decided that Jane would remain a threat to the crown, and she was then executed. Given a 9-day rule, there were no official coinage struck in her name. Once again, historians dispute the legitimacy of her reign, but I thought her worth including. Mercifully, things get a bit more simple with our third queen, or first queen if you aren't counting Matilda and Jane before. This is an undated shilling from the reign of Queen Mary, commonly referred to as Bloody Mary or Mary Tudor. It would have been struck between 1554 and 1558, and we recently featured it on a previous video about hammered coins, which you can check out. Queen Mary, as we discussed, was the daughter of King Henry VIII and his first wife, Catherine of Aragon. She is the first indisputable female monarch to successfully claim the throne. She is notable in her attempts to restore the primacy of the Roman Catholic Church in England, which her father had broken away from during the Reformation. She is referred to as Bloody Mary for her anti-Catholic policies, which grew from simply reversing her father and half-brother's anti-Catholic policies to the persecution of Protestants. In 1555, she reinstated England's heresy laws and began burning offenders at the stake. Over her reign, over 300 people were burnt at the stake, including the Archbishop of Canterbury. You can also see on this coin that she is not alone. Featuring as well is her husband, the Spanish Prince Philip. He wasn't a popular choice for marriage, with the Protestant people, being that he too was a Roman Catholic. But he was the heir to the Spanish throne and was set to inherit a lot of land in Europe and in the New World, so if an heir could be born, it could unite large swathes of territory and power. It was negotiated with Parliament that the marriage would be allowed on the provision that if no heir was born, that the crown would not pass to her husband, but to her half-sister Elizabeth. This was agreed, and therefore we see Mary and Philip appearing together on shilling and sixpences, although they reigned for only 4 years before Mary's death without an heir. From one of King Henry VIII's daughters to another, we have here a silver sixpence from 1582 during the reign of Queen Elizabeth I. The obverse of the coin features her portrait, in which she is crowned, and to her right a rose, an emblem of the Tudor dynasty. She was a popular queen during and after her lifetime, a Protestant ruler who established the Church of England in 1559, finishing the process started by her father. She ruled during the success against the Spanish Armada, a fleet of 130 ships sent by King Philip II of Spain, the husband of the former Queen Mary. Although criticised for her caution in foreign policy, her 44-year reign in the aftermath of short reigns of her half-siblings brought stability to a kingdom which aided in forging a national identity. On the reverse of the coin we can see a quartered shield of arms with the date above. Just above the date you can also see a bell. Now this is a mint mark which identifies where a coin was struck. This mint mark was only used in 1582 and 83 and tells us that it was minted at the Tower of London. Her coinage is popular with numismatists due to the length of her reign, allowing for a wide variety of denominations, issues and mint marks. She also made efforts to restore British coinage which had been debased, a reduction in the precious metal used in the composition of the coins. The debased coinage of her father was recalled, and the silver was used in part to strike pure silver shillings bearing her image. These new shillings became hugely popular and sought after coins in commerce around the world. She also sympathised with her poorer subjects, and for the first time a 3p, 3 halfpence and 3 farthings were struck. With her image being on these coins, it is said that the labouring classes idolised it. Our next queen features on some very popular coinage. We can see the joint portraits of King William III of England and II of Scotland, or more commonly known as William of Orange, and his wife Queen Mary II. This is a halfpenny minted in 1694, 5 years into their joint reign. They are the first and only monarchs to have joint sovereignty and equal powers. Although previous kings and queens had consorts, none had equal billing to the reigning monarch until now. Queen Mary II's father had inherited the throne after the death of his father, King Charles II. Her father's reign of England was troubled, again due to religious strife. He was a Catholic and persecuted Protestants, leading to a request by 7 notable British nobles for William to invade and depose the unpopular king. Although initially reluctant to do so, fearing the English would resist and it would tie his forces down when he really needed them elsewhere. He eventually agreed, sending a huge force of 250 carrier ships and 60 fishing boats carrying 35,000 men, 11,000 foot soldiers and 4,000 cavalry. King James attempted to resist but ultimately failed, and William and Mary were to become king and queen. Now there were attempts, as previously with Mary and Philip, to make Mary II queen with William as consort, but this left him feeling insecure and threatened to leave the country unless he had equal power. Importantly, his wife also remained loyal to him, refusing to take the crown for just herself. With such an interesting portrait, these coins are sought after by collectors. Mary only lived for another 5 years though, and after she died her portrait was removed from the obverse, so much like the coinage of Mary and Philip, there is just a small window of opportunity for these coins to have been struck. Mary often deferred to her husband throughout their reign, but did on occasions, when her husband was otherwise occupied, engaged in military campaigns abroad, acted alone, proving herself to be a firm and strong leader, effective in her own right. Next up we have a silver crown from 1703, during the time of Queen Anne, 1 year into her reign. The reverse features crowned cruciform shields around a central garter star. The shields bear the national emblems of the countries England, Scotland, Ireland and France, with the latter surprisingly remaining on the royal coat of arms until 1801, when King George III abandoned his predecessor's ancient claims to the French throne. It had also become a republic by then as well. Queen Anne was another child of former King James II and ascended to the throne in 1702 following the death of William, who had reigned independently after his wife Queen Mary II had died. Anne had distanced herself from her father, siding with William and Mary publicly when they deposed him. Her reign saw the start of the Spanish War of Succession, an expensive and eventually unpopular war. She also saw the Act of Union pass, uniting the kingdoms of England and Scotland formally as Great Britain. This tied the two nations together, having shared a monarchy for over 100 years. On the obverse of the coin we see a portrait of the Queen. The man in charge of her new coinage was Sir Isaac Newton, then the Master of the Mint. Once the Act of Union passed, he was also tasked with bringing Scottish coinage into line with English coinage too. If we look to the bottom of this coin, you can see the word Vigo. This was minted on the coins, indicating that the silver used to strike these coins was captured from the Spanish treasure fleet at the Battle of Vigo Bay in 1702. These coins celebrate an overwhelming success for the Grand Alliance in the War of the Spanish Succession. These coins were kind of like propaganda at the time, extolling the power and victory. It is worth noting though that more coinage was struck than would have been produced from the real Vigo booty, but then again history is written by the victor. Our penultimate queen is one that we've looked at in detail in the past. This coin is from the reign of Queen Victoria, and as you can see it's a silver 1 shilling struck in 1881. The denomination is surrounded by a wreath of oak and olive branches tied at the bottom with ribbon. This coin is in exquisite condition at about uncirculated grade. Queen Victoria reigned for 63 years, becoming the first British monarch to reach a diamond jubilee, at the time naturally becoming the UK's longest ever reigning monarch. Given her extensive reign, there are 3 main portraits of her on coinage which we've covered in depth in previous videos. For this coin though, we look at her first portrait, referred to as Young Head. This was designed by William Wyon, and although there were alterations over time, it's a portrait the Queen herself thought very favourably of, remaining in use on her gold coinage until 1887, when she herself was in her late 60s. Queen Victoria's reign is remembered for its progress and ingenuity, with the world's first industrial revolution, positioning Britain as arguably the world's first superpower. It wouldn't just be economic shifts, there were social reforms and important cultural changes as well. We finish on a queen that we're all familiar with, one of the most recognisable faces on the planet, Queen Elizabeth II. This year celebrating the 70th anniversary of her reign, the first British monarch to reach a platinum jubilee, and who knows when this milestone may be reached again. Her reign began in 1952 with the death of her father, King George VI, and has seen monumental changes over this period in all walks of life. Being served by 14 prime ministers, and counting, she has been a permanent fixture in the culture of our country. The coin itself is a 2022 2-ounce Britannia, another strong female personification of Britain who has appeared on our coinage and in our culture for longer than you may think. We have made a video about the history of Britannia if you'd like to check that out as well. Her reign saw one of the largest changes in our coinage, for in 1971 the UK went decimal, replacing what we now refer to as the pre-decimal system with the coinage that we know and use today. Her portrait too has changed over time, currently on her 5th portrait, as you can see on this coin designed by Jodie Clark. Well, there we go, the 8 Queens of Britain and their coinage. It's been fascinating to see just the progress of the coins over the many years and queens. It's also been fascinating to look into the reigns of the powerful queens that have helped forge our culture. Let me know in the comments what your favourite coin from today's video is, and there are links down in the description to the coins that are featured in this video and our related products. Be sure as well to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's free to do and means you won't miss any of our future uploads. We're also on Twitter and TikTok. We post lots of pictures of our coins on Facebook and Instagram. We've got our shop and online store, but I'll see you next time for more amazing coins from the Britannia Coin Company.